Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to the session on DevOps, basically. So we are from DevOps University. So this is about us. Where is this? So here we go. Thank you so much everybody for joining again. So we are from DevOps University, and we are as an organization we are looking to deliver, the trainings on DevOps, and we will be helping as much as we can. Okay. So that's about us in simple words, and then myself, I'll talk about myself. I'll be the one who will be taking this demo. Hope everybody is able to hear me, I believe. Right? Could you please say something, somebody, if you can hear me well?
Yeah,
Yes, yes, Naresh. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, guys. You can mute yourself. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. So great. So team here. Just to talk about a quick introduction about myself, team, I am Naresh. I'll be the one who's taking this demo now. So coming to my experience, I have over a decade of experience in the IT industry, and I'm working as a DevOps solution architect right now. So I have a plenty of experience on various, sectors, like from the development to the architecting to the solutions, various things accordingly. So that's a quick thing about me. And then I'm also teaching on the sideways. Teaching is my passion, basically. So I've been teaching for a few years now. I have a good command over teaching and everything. So we'll hope I will be helping you as much as we can here. That's a quick introduction about myself. So let's look at the demo today, which we are going to go with the DevOps and the Docker and a container orchestration like Kubernetes demo. A quick one we'll be trying to deliver as much as we can. So this is the agenda for today. This is a quick agenda for today, team. So we are going to start with a quick introduction. We're going to start with a little bit background as software engineering, what does software engineering tells us, and we'll look at over the years how the evolution of IT has occurred, and then finally we'll talk about DevOps, why we need DevOps, or what is the reason that DevOps has come into the market. Then along with that, we're going to discuss a few tools and technologies that will be part of your, the course, or, whenever you go for a DevOps technology, sorry, DevOps learning. After that, we'll discuss about a few containerization tools like Docker. And then we also going to talk about a few things on container orchestration, such as Kubernetes. And then finally, team, we're going to talk about a certification side as well. Why do we need the certifications and all? Finally, we can take the question and answers. So please, team, I would request everybody, you can, we will take your questions at the end. So till then, please use your chat window if you have, and then, we can ask your questions. So that's the agenda for today. We're gonna get quickly started with this again. So let's get into it, right? Here we go. Some of the basics which we would like to touch base, like everybody are working in IT industry now, you might be hearing about these words such as server and applications. These are the regular words that you normally hear from, in your day-to-day life. As a IT employee or, as a software engineer, you always hear about these words. Now let's try to understand what is a server first of all. So the server is something where you host an application or where you host something so that we can send a request to the server and then we get a response back, right? Which means that like any applications nowadays, we usually host them on a server basically, so that we will simply send a request, such as if you take an example of any website or like Facebook or Google or whatever it means, they are hosted on a particular server somewhere, right? Somewhere in the world, we don't know, but we simply use the internet connection to access them. And then finally, you could send a request and you get the response back. The server is some purpose, like here it works on something called as a request and response patterning or request and response model in simple words. So we are talking about very basic themes, so we'll get into the things accordingly. So please bear with us for some time so everybody could understand or everybody can reach the same level. And once we understand the server team, so let's understand about an application. Now we know that we work on various type of applications every day to day. So you work on different types of applications also. Now, when we talk about applications team, there are mainly three categories of application we always discuss about. Something called as standalone application. A standalone application is something basically which you install on a server, like a laptop or a desktop, we call it. So what is the use of this software, or what is the use of this type of application, is that, you know, this type of application will solve some purpose. I know that we are all developing some applications to solve some purposes, like calculator application will solve the math problems similar to that one. So what is a standalone application is that the applications that you install on a desktop, on a laptop kind of a stuff, are called as standalone because they stand alone and they serve only one user at a time. In simple word, again, like MS Office that you use it, or VLC media player that you use it, or kind of a calculator application that you use it, these are all called as standalone applications that we are using, like only one user can access them at any point of given time, those whoever sit in front of the particular system. Now that is called as standalone application in simple words. Now when we move ahead and then try to ask like, okay, how do I enable the same application for a number of users, then we always talk about something called as web applications, right? Now the web applications are something like, the hosted over web, like you can see that over the internet, you can think about it like any website that you normally access, like you can go for devopsuniversity.org, right? That is kind of a web application which is hosted on a server specifically. Now whenever you go to these applications, or you can access the application, or I can access this application over the internet, the content that you see it is same for you as well as me, which means that we developed an application and we hosted on a particular server, which we enabled multiple users access basically, right? So which means that again, so we are providing access to a number of users. Thus we resolve the problem of a standalone application, and then we are ensuring that many users are accessing the same application. Now similarly, at the same time, wherever you are in the world, whatever the geographic location you are, so we are simply able to access the application as well. This is the second advantage that you get it normally with a web application, right? So the web applications are simple websites, in other words we can call them, and then they enable a number of users access at any point of given time. Now, how do we make enable, or how do we enable an application to be accessed by the n number of users here? If you think about that, now we develop the same application, but we host them on a particular server, such as a web server, we call it, right? So the web servers are the one which host this type of web application, like mostly the static content stuff. Now, when you host it on that particular server, we are enabling the access to the server by sending a request to that particular server. We are getting the response back. Like you and like me, there are a number of users who can send a request to that particular server, and they can access the application accordingly. Now, this is the second type of application team, which we always work on it, which we always use it. Now, there is one next level of application, which is we call it as enterprise applications. Now, when we talk about enterprise applications team, these are also the same as web applications, which can be accessed over the internet, which can be accessed by the n number of users, which can be accessed wherever you are in the geographic location. It has almost same features as web applications, but it has an extended features than your web application. Most of the thing team, if you try to understand, when I go to the devopsuniversity.org, I would see the same information such as what is this organization about, what is how do we contact them, what are the courses offered by the DevOps University, and all this stuff. This is the common stuff. You see it, I also see it, right? This is kind of a static information. But when it comes to the enterprise application, they possess some business logic in it, and they possess some kind of business transaction involved in it. Like if I take an example of Amazon.com, right? Amazon.com is called as enterprise application. Why? Because if you want to do some transactions there, you need to log in first of all. That is the first feature that you would see it when you go for an enterprise application, right? So enterprise application is something which offers some security first of all, so that you could log in. Once you log in, you actually see your own content, right? Not any other content, but you would see your own account information, like whatever the information that you put it while registering for yourself, all that content will be displayed. Similarly, every user get their own content when they log in. Means that dynamic content has been managed here very well. Now, the second thing is about, along with that, when you perform a transaction on the website, right, you get, like, whenever you pay something, you get an automatically email or SMS, whatever you get it. This is called as messaging services in simple words, right? There are some messaging services which are offered by the enterprise applications. That is the second feature that you can get it. Now, the third thing is about integrations. When we talk about integrations, which means that the Amazon website or Amazon.com is, whenever you pay for the, whenever you click on the payment button, it is actually communicating with the respective bank website or bank application to process the payment, which means that Amazon is talking to a set of applications over the internet again. So this is called as integration. So application talking to another application over the internet. So this is called as integration. So like your enterprise applications have this kind of feature also, they can talk with a number of multiple other applications to process the business purpose, right? Business logic and everything. Now that is one another feature that you can get it. Likewise, team, we have more number of features that you normally get it. Now finally, enterprise applications are also having a high availability. Why do we need a high availability for your enterprise applications? Is that, let's take an example here again, right? So when you go for a DevOpsUniversity.org, it's a simple website, right? Maybe the mostly the minimum amount of users may be using at any point of time. If that website goes down for some time, like 5 minutes, DevOps University may not face a big business loss or something. But whereas your Amazon goes down for 5 minutes, then that is the loss to the company is a huge, basically, because of the transaction they do it in every 5 minutes is very huge. So we ensure that the enterprise applications are highly available. Is no matter what, you have to ensure that highly available. So this is kind of an extra features that you would normally get a team when you go for kind of different types of applications that we normally do it, right? Finally, to enable this enterprise applications, or how do we host these enterprise applications, is something using application server. And this is the server which process the business logic and everything. Like we use web servers to host web applications. Now, if I want to host enterprise applications which has all of this logic to be processed, like integrations, messaging, security, all these things cannot be provided by a simple web server. So we normally use something called as an application server, which normally does all these things. So this is just a quick introduction, team, like a basics we call it. We just need to have an idea like what type of things we are working on. I know everybody works on some kind of a project where they develop some software or application. They try to deliver it to the end user. So your application maybe fall into one of these categories and all those stuff. So this is just like to the basic introduction that would like to give you on just general terms that we use day to day. Now, along with that, if you try to understand about application architectures, we'll discuss about these things, team. Let's move ahead. So I'd like to start with a definition of a software engineering here, right? So the software engineering definition says to you that it is a systematic approach to the development, operation, and maintenance of a software. Now, as I told again, we are all working towards a single project where we try to develop a software and we try to operate the software, which means that we are actually hosting the software into a server like a web server or application server, and then finally we maintain it. Now let me take an example here, team, again, just to explain you further better, right? So let's take Android is there, Android version 1 is ready, and then that is where we call it as the development is completed. Now once the Android version 1 is ready, we need to deliver this to the end users, right? So we need to deliver this to. So what we exactly do is something, we host it on a particular server so that every user can download and then can start installing it and then do it, right? So this is what is called as operation. So from the development, we are moving into another location where everybody else can use your software so that make use of the particular application, right? So this is what is called as operation, moving from the development into the other area where users can use it. That is why we call it as operating the software. So once we finally operate the software, or once end user is facing, or once end user is using or enjoying the features of your application, let's say that we start working on version 2, obviously, right? We never stop with the version 1 there. In the development, we start working on version 1, version 2, right? Now, if you say that we don't support version 1 anymore because we already raised it, we never support this version anymore. If you feel that, if the company says that, so basically, right? So would you like to use that particular software? But if you face any issues, then how would you resolve it? Now, this is a big problem, right? That is the reason, right? Though you are working on version 2, we still support version 1, which is running in the production or which is used by the end users. We always support that. If the end user reports some software bug or some software issue, we start working on it also parallelly, which means that in the development, we work on the bug fixes of the version 1, and we also work on the version 2 to enhance the features of your applications for the next release. So these are all the things goes on, right? This is kind of a life cycle, we call it a software development life cycle. In short word, you can know it, right? So the main goal of your software engineering is always about the development, operation, and maintenance of the software. This is all we are working towards. In simple words, if you think about the goal, we always try to deliver an efficient and reliable software to the end user. This is what all we are trying to achieve at the end of the day. Okay. Now, when we think about this, basically, we come across a basic thing which is called as software development lifecycle. I know everybody know these things already, team. Just post on it. So what SDLC tells us basically is SDLC defines the complete life cycle of software. That is to know what are all the various stages involved in it, like planning it, creating and testing and delivering the software to the client or to the market, right? This is what we call it. Now, again, the SDLC process aims to produce and quality software at the end of the day. That is what we are trying to achieve again. Now, SDLC team, why we discuss SDLC is about because we have various SDLC models over the years. Let's say the phase 1 of your SDLC or the phase 1 of your IT evolution, we call it as, what is the model team which we used it first of all, which is called as waterfall. So we're not going to discuss much about the waterfall because since you already know it, I'll just give you a brief glimpse on it and then we can jump on to the next things. So in the waterfall model, that there is a new phase on the development process begins only the previous state complete, right? Which means that it is a step-by-step process. Previous steps are dependent, no, the next steps are always dependent on the previous steps. If I complete the previous step, then only I can move on to the next step. That is the dependency that we have it in this model. Now, this way of developing your software, what exactly this is going to be about. So this is called as, the challenges, we call it team. The time to market is very high because when the requirement comes up and by the time you deliver it to the end user, it is going to take a very, very long time to deliver the particular software, right? So the time to market nowadays, we are expecting a speed of delivery. That is what it is. Now, using this software development lifecycle model may not be suitable in the current situation. So we never, this is the phase 1, we call it. That's why we started using it and we always left over, means we left it this model and we shifted on to the next model, right? What is the next model is about is something we call, or before that, let's discuss something, along with the development process. We now understand that in the waterfall model, right, the development used to take a longer time. Along with that, how we used to deliver this application, or what is the application architecture that we used to use it. Now, simply team, here you can see that basically the application architecture which we used was monolithic architecture. Now, I'm not sure how many of you heard about this monolithic architecture. When we talk about monolithic architecture, so when we talk about the monolithic architecture here, so it is all about, the various components related to your application. Let's say that I'm developing an application team in simple words, right? So when you're talking about application has various components such as maybe the UI part of the application, and then, where the actual logic process like business logic is processed, that area itself. And then finally, if there is something called as a database in the backend, all those various components, right? The purpose of your application, maybe it's segregated into different components like application layer, UI layer, and the business layer. And then we call it about the database layer or data layer. There are different components which may required by your application always, right? It's not that your application all alone works. Now you have a number of application components, all of them were tightly coupled together, means that everything has a dependency. In order to deploy this application, the application code looks a very bigger one, like 10,000 lines code in a single file. And then finally we host, like, it is kind of all the dependencies written together. Now, whenever you deploy this type of application, we have to deploy that into a single unit again, because we cannot separate that. That is the reason the monolithic architecture is called as tightly coupled architecture, right? So this way of deployment team takes a longer time and it is very heavier process. So one thing is dependent on other. So if one component fails, other components also get affected. There are a number of disadvantages we have with this type of architecture. Now that is what we use it at the same time, right? And where we used to host this particular applications team in earlier days, when we started evolution of IT again, we also started with computers in the early stages, where we used to use something called as physical servers. Now I'm not really sure how many of you really know about a physical, applications here. So let me simply take this way, right? Now a physical application team or physical system, physical server we call it. It is a simple server which has some capacity on it. Like your laptop has something like CPU, RAM, and disk, right? Now your laptop can be called as a physical server in some other words. In enterprise level, we use a physical hardware which has a huge capacity. Let's say that this has a 32 CPUs. Now after this, you have around 100 GB RAM. Now let's say that you have around a 2 TB disk. So this is type of a server that we use to use it where we have a huge resources. Now once after you have this one, let's say that this is where we used to install a simple operating system, and finally we used to host our application. Let's say if our application is a Java application, let's say that I used to host Java application, and then I use some kind of, again, a web server or application server like Tomcat, and then finally we host our application. Say that this is like app.var. So this is what we used to use a team. This is how we used to host. Along with that, because if it is a monolithic architecture, you could deploy the database also on the same physical server. This is kind of a thing basically we used to use to host the application. Here the WAD team, to host the application, we use physical server earlier days. Now why we use this kind of a big server instead of small servers? Because team, earlier days we never used a performance testing, or we never know that how much resources are required by my application, right? We never done the performance testing, we never really calculated. I started writing the code, I started deploying the code, but I never really calculated what are the resource requirement for my application. So because we never done that one, we used to take a long big servers and we deploy the application. Okay, let it take whatever it is. Our infrastructure folks says that okay, let it take whatever it wanted, right? If it is using, that's good. If it's not using, that's a waste of money, in simple words, right? That is the reason we actually use it something called as physical servers in the first stage or first era. Basically, in the first phase of evolution, we used to use a physical servers to host the application. Now if you look at this, the and where we used to keep this infrastructure like hardware and everything, we used to have something called as a data center, or every organization do have something called as a data center, like a building where you keep all the hardware, and then finally you enable networking and you access the server or you host the servers there, and whatever is required to ensure that server infrastructure is running, we ensure, keep the engineers, keep the ACs, whatever it is required, power backups, whatever is required to mention, that is what is maintained at your data center level, right? So this is the first phase of your IT evolution team. This is what we used to use it. Now we saw some drawbacks with this, definitely, right? Because of the waterfall model, it is taking huge time. Monolithic architecture, it is hard for me to maintain the application. Physical servers, there could be wastage of resources happening. It there are some challenges we had it. So in order to overcome this, we simply jumped onto the next level of IT evolution, or next level of the development model, which is called as your agile, right? So this is what is something we talked about it. Sorry. So this is where we arrived. This is where we arrived completely. So we shifted from waterfall to the agile, in simple words. Now agile has brought us some speed into the development team. That is what we call it. Now what is agile? If you would like to understand in simple words, I can explain it in simple words team. We are not going to get into it, but let's try to understand in simple words what exactly agile works on, how exactly agile works. So here, this is the slide team. I can quickly explain it. So you can look at that. There is a team here, the team of people, or a few people called as a team, or we call it as a scrum team, or called as an agile team. Basically, they form a team in your organization, and this team will have a mentor called as a scrum master, or your manager, whatever you think about it. Now this team needs some requirement to work on. So there is some guy called as product owner. He is the one who talks to the end user or client. He gets the requirement from the end user. Now he starts putting up something called as user stories, or he takes the work and he starts writing something called as a user story. Now a user story is simple words team. It is a task or it is a requirement given by the client. Now based on the priority and given by the client everything, the product owner decides or which need to be worked on. He decides all the work into the user story and he will prioritize the work here. Now we do something called as a sprint planning here. Now based on the requirements or based on the client requirement, we start taking this requirement and start working on it. Now we do something called as sprint planning here. A sprint planning is something here team in agile, we work on a shorter life cycle, like called as a sprint, called as a 2 weeks time frame. We take it, and within the 2 weeks time frame we target some work and then we try to finish that work, right? So the sprint planning is called as, where you put a target like how many days you need to work. Usually the sprint lasts from 1 week to 4 weeks, but most of the organization does a 2 weeks sprint, right? So the 2 week sprint is something we take it. So within the 2 weeks, now we tell these guys that, okay, you take the user story which you can work on, take the user story and then try to complete within 2 weeks, and we keep tracking of the work continuously, right? This is what we used to do it. Now finally team, once we started the sprint, once sprint planning is over, we start with the work. Now every day the scrum master hosts a call called as daily stand up, right? This is what we call it, or a daily scrum meeting we call it. Now this people technically says that, it's gonna end in 15 minutes. There we will discuss 3 important questions, which is called as what did you do yesterday, what are we going to do today, and then are there any impediments, are there any problem in implementing your task that is assigned to you. This is being discussed every day at the start of the day, or you can do it. If there are any issues, you can take the help of the scrum master to finish the issues or fix the issues, whatever it is. Now this is why we call him as mentor. Now once this is done team, let's say that we are working successfully on 2 weeks, is at the end of the sprint ending, with at the end of the 2 weeks we do something called as a demo, basically a sprint demo or a sprint review we call it. Means that whatever the work done in that 2 weeks, we simply demo to the client, right? Now if the client likes, okay, fantastic, the work is done, go for the next set of requirement again, keep on working on it. So this is kind of an iterative model we call it. So this is a shorter life cycle. We keep on developing the new features every 2 weeks, and we keep on ensuring that the client is giving the requirement, we take it. So this way of iterative model team, we bring in the speed in the development, right? So here one another advantage is that we are continuously talking with the client. So the client feedback is very important here. Client is able to look at what you're doing exactly, and then client is giving continuous feedback so that customer satisfaction is also reached, right? Along with that, if there is any changes required for the client, so dynamically client can come in and then give it the client requirement whenever he wants it. So we accommodate the dynamic requirements from the clients also. Now this is kind of an agile model, we call it as iterative model. With this we achieved, or we were able to speed up the development process. Means that every 2 weeks now we are able to develop a new feature so that the client is getting happy here. Now this is called as agile in simple words, right? So if you think about another area here now, like the phase 2, what exactly, now we achieved the development speed team, but how exactly we changed our other sides, like the application architecture, deployment things, or where exactly we used to host and all these things. Now if you think about application architecture team, because we had the bigger problem with monolithic architecture, so we simplified it a little bit and we called it as NTR architecture. Now what is this NTR architecture in simple words, right? So if you think about NTR architecture team, I hope you might have heard about something called as 3-tier architecture, right? What is a 3-tier architecture if you simply think about it? So let me explain that. A 3-tier architecture team, as we discussed, so we need to host our application into a server. Let's say that this is my server where actually I hosted my application. Let's say that application is hosted. This is usually, we call it. Now, if your application require a database, we host the database on a different machine altogether. Now, this is called as database, which is required by your things. Now, let's say that I want to access this application, so I need to send a request into this, right? Now, in other words, team, let's say this is a bank application here. We have it. Let's say that there's a bank application. Let's say that this is my SBI application, correct? So here it is. If I want to send this request into this particularly, what we actually do is we use a browser and then send the request into this one. You get the response back, right? So similar to this one, team, you have a number of clients nowadays. Like you use the same kind of thing here, which is called as mobile application nowadays, right? So we have a number of clients to access the same application. It doesn't mean that, team, if you're installing an application in your mobile, it doesn't have the entire banking application there. It is simply an interface which is connecting to the same application in the backend again, right? So this is what we call it, right? So this is how it looks like. Now, if you think about this, team, there are 3 different levels here. We separated out the application functionality, right? So here it is. Now, the first one is called as tier 1, right? Now, the second one is called as tier 2, right? The third one is called as tier 3, right? So this is how we call it as 3-tier architecture. Now, let's say that whenever you enter the sbi.com or something, it will ask you for the login page. Whenever you enter the credentials, because application doesn't store any credentials, now application makes a call to the database to validate your credentials and everything. Finally, once it is authenticated, you will see the content of your own thing again. So this is called as 3-tier architecture, team, or it is also known as an n-tier architecture. Now, in other words, it is called as client tier, right? And this is called as middle tier, right? And this is called as your backend tier, right? So in other words, right, this is how we use it. Middleware, we call it simply, where we host our applications is called as middleware, like the Tomcat or application servers or web servers are always called as your middleware. And the backend is about all of your databases where you exactly store the entire client data and everything. Now the front end is something like, you know, the UI based, where you access your application completely and then you see the application layer. So this is called as 3-tier architecture, team. In simple words, we call it as 3-tier architecture, or it is also known as n-tier architecture, right? This is what we actually call it. So this is, in simple words, team, we have it. Now this is the second level of IT evolution where we started using this n-tier architecture so that it simplified the process a little, so that one component stops affecting other component. Now database is running in a different machine, application is running on a different machine, the client is accessing from a different machine. So you have different set of tools here, and then, you know, it is enabling you to work accordingly, and it is simplifying the process, and it is not affecting the other components accordingly. Now, this is what we are using so far. Nowadays also we are using the same architecture, team. Most of the organizations are using this only. If you think about this, what about where we are hosting these different types of services again? We converted our physical servers into the virtualization. Now, what exactly is the virtualization here again, right? So let's talk about the virtualization in simple words, team. So let's say that I have the same physical box. Since I see that there is, you know, the lot of resource wastage that I have it with this physical box, and we are really never using the complete the resources on this machine. So to solve this purpose, basically we started virtualizing the servers, or we started virtualization. Basically, what do we mean by virtualization here? So this has the same capacity, team. Let's think that we took the same capacity physical server again, right? This is the same physical capacity server, but instead of installing an operating system here, we started using hypervisor. Hypervisor is a separate software, team, like VMware has provided kind of virtualization. I hope you guys might have installed something called as a VM workstation or VirtualBox on top of your operating systems, right? Now that type of a software is this basically, which can be installed on a bare metal directly, just like your operating system. Now this provides us the virtualization, means that this allows us to create a virtual machine on top of the same physical box. This is what it is going to do it, right? So here it is, we have this virtual box or virtual machine. Now this virtual machine inside, we're going to install an operating system and we host our application. Now one more thing, team, when you are creating the virtual machine here, this virtual machine is required some resources, so we allocate the resources to every virtual machine from the underlying hardware. What I mean to say here is that, so if I want this virtual machine to use a 4 CPU, then I allocate 4 CPUs. Let's say that this can use 10 GB RAM. Now let's say that this can use 100 GB disk, right? So this is the capacity that I'm allocating this to particular server. So which means that on the same physical box, right, we are creating a virtualization. Now every virtual machine is utilizing a part of the resources from the same physical machine. That is what we call it as virtualization here. This way of creating the virtual machines team solved many purposes. Like I can host multiple applications on the same hardware now, right? At the same time, I can use a different type of applications like Windows operating system can be used to host your .NET applications. Let's say here I'm using a Linux server, I can host my Java application. Now here, let's say that I'm using a Red Hat Linux, I can host some kind of a Node.js application. So virtual machines are enabled to use the same hardware more effectively by independent systems here. Now every virtual machine is called as independent virtual machine here. Everything, one machine will not affect other one. This is how we started virtualizing the hardware, and then we started utilizing virtual machines instead of your physical machines. So here team, this thing is called as hardware level virtualization, because while creating a virtual machines, right, so we always think about what resources we need to keep it for a virtual machine. Since we are allocating the hardware resources to the machine, we call this as hardware level virtualization in simple words. So this is what it is called, team, hardware level virtualization. Now as I told, like this is, you can see that now every virtual machine can have its own resources based on the capacity that you have it. Multiple application can be hosted, multiple operating system can be hosted. Like one physical machine used to have one operating system, now here you have multiple things. This is how the flexibility has come into the picture. We are able to use the resources much effectively with this kind of virtualization and everything. This is the second era we converted our physical machines into the virtual machines accordingly, to ensure that we are using the resources up to the mark. Okay, so this is what it is called as virtualization team, which we started using it in the second evolution of IT, second phase of IT. And we also started using the hosted data centers. So what I mean to say the hosted data centers here is, uh, let's say that you have a house which is called as 2 BHK house. Now you are only 4 people now, so you're able to use the 2 BHK house very effectively. Now let's say that you have got more children, like 4 children or something, you became 8 people in the house, right? Now this is very difficult to use for 8 people in a 2 BHK house. So what you thought of is, instead of building another house, you go and rent another 3 BHK house, which is simple for you to do it, right? So this is the same situation, team. If you think about your data center, you start keep on putting the servers. When you ran out of the space on your building, on your own data center, instead of building a new data center for your organization, let's go and rent some servers from the third party organization. There are some organization, they rent some servers so that you can simply rent the server and start hosting your application on that particular server. Now those things are called as hosted data centers. Hosted, right? We are hosting our application on third party data center, not our own data center, but it's a third party data center. Now, if you take an example another way around, the data center is like your own kitchen where you cook yourself and eat yourself everything. But whereas the hosted data center is something like a hotel. Whenever you feel that, okay, I can't cook at my home, then go to hotel and order something and eat something and come back, right? You use it wherever you want. This is how you can compare the kitchen and then the hotel. That is what you can think about it. So this is about the second evolution of IT team, or second phase of IT. We started, or we geared up a little bit, and we started delivering, no, started speed up the development, also deliver the application a little faster than the waterfall model. Now, what exactly we are thinking about here, or why do we need the next level, right? What exactly are the challenges? You know that the next is something DevOps already. I don't need to explain that, because we have 3 evolutions: waterfall, agile, and the next is DevOps. We know all that. But what exactly are the challenges here, right? What exactly are the challenges that we have it with agile that led us towards the towards your DevOps model? Basically, that's what you need to understand. So let's discuss about a few challenges, team. That's what I call it. So let's discuss about a few challenges which we have it with agile model, where we are thinking about moving to the DevOps model. Now look at this, team, very carefully. So here, if you think about it, challenges with your thing, which is called as your infrastructure readiness. What is this called as infrastructure readiness basically? Team, if you really think about the agile model, so agile model was implemented basically with the development teams mostly. Infrastructure teams are never involved in the agile process. So what exactly we're doing is that with agile, we are taking a smaller requirement. With iterative model, we call it, we are able to develop the new features every 2 weeks, right? We are keep on adding the functionality to your application every 2 weeks. Now let's think about, in order to deliver this or to make it available for the end user, we need to host this on a server. Simple that, right? Infrastructure is something where you host it. Infrastructure is something you're talking about the servers where you host your application. Now, if I keep on adding in new features and keep on deploying the same the application into the same server, right? Will it be capable of holding all the new features? Now, in other words, team, simply I can explain this way. Let's say that you have iPhone 6. Now, the current version of iOS is, the iOS 13. Can we install our iOS 13 into iPhone 6? Okay, you can say that yes, we can do it. But what happens if I install iOS 13 on iPhone 6 here? In simple words, your phone starts hanging because the amount of features that I have it in the software, the hardware is not capable of holding them, or hardware is not capable of processing all the application which is having with iOS 13, right? So now this is where team, you'll see that your phone starts hanging or your phone may crash also. It keep on rebooting sometimes. Now this is the same case, you can apply it here also, because every 2 weeks you keep on adding the new features, right? But whenever you want to deliver it, once you're ready with the features and everything, you're going and asking operation teams or the ones who's hosting the application, let's start hosting this. Now, if you keep on deploying it, the infrastructure may not be ready there, right? So infrastructure may not be ready. If you deploy the same application, the application will fail to start or application will start hanging. Now the end users start facing the issues. That is what is the problem that you normally get it, right? So that is why, team, we say that infrastructure is not getting ready here. Why? Because we are informing the infrastructure team here after the development is complete, right? Now, if you say that, so the infrastructure team says that, okay, in order to deliver these features, I need to upgrade my hardware there. This might take some time, right? This might take at least a couple of weeks for me. So please hold on it. So, and though the application is ready, though the application's features are ready, we are not able to deliver it to the end user because the infrastructure is not there. Infrastructure is not supporting your application functionalities. Now, this is called as infrastructure readiness team. We think that, this is a major challenge where we have the problem, right? Where we have the problem, we need to resolve this. With Agile, we achieve the development speed, means the development speed is achieved, but whereas we are lacking some information that need to be considered at the operations level. So operation teams are never part of the Agile team here. So they never know what exactly the developer is doing. So the infrastructure is getting delayed to host your application. Now that is called as infrastructure readiness team in simple words. The second challenge we talk about is called as scalability. Though scalability is something like, you can say that in my production, I have 10 servers where I'm able to serve 1,000 requests every day, right? Now, all of a sudden, I announced a big billion day. I was expecting 5,000 requests tomorrow morning. Now, by tomorrow morning, can I increase my infrastructure so that I can accommodate 5,000 requests in a day, right? So this is what is a scenario, team. Infrastructure, the scalability, how quickly I can scale up. Because team, if my 10 servers can accommodate 1,000 requests, I need another 40 servers which can accommodate my another 4,000 requests, right? So how quickly I can build another 40 servers in my infrastructure and I can make it available for the end user to access the application on those 40 servers. Now that is another big challenge basically, right? Scalability is possible, but it takes a time. I cannot go for the on-demand scaling here. We are talking about on-demand scaling. Nowadays, we are all talking about on-demand business, right? On-demand in the sense, whenever there is a requirement, you need to get it. After that, don't use it. So the on-demand scaling is not at all possible with this agile model. I see that there is a challenge basically. We still need to be resolved with the things accordingly. Now you know that the quality of the product, why the quality of the product will miss with agile, because of the tight timeline schedules that the client gives always. We tend to deliver the application faster than testing it properly and then do it. The quality of the product is compromised sometimes because of the tight timeline schedules that you have with the agile model, we are always, missing this one, and then we are facing some issues with the production. Now we need to ensure that the quality of the product is also matters here. We need to ensure we deliver a good quality software to the end user. That is another thing. And then something called as a limited release windows here. Releases may fail or slip, which means that team, let's say that an example of, again, my application development is completed on Monday itself for some reason, but I cannot go ahead and deploy this application features since though the infrastructure is ready, I cannot deploy it till the maintenance window or the release window, we call it. Now, most of the applications team, most of the organization, they have some release windows or maintenance windows, we call it, in which only you need to update the application features or upgrade the applications or upgrade whatever you do it. So that release window is called as, the maintenance window also sometimes. Means that though the application is ready, we are waiting for some time to deliver it. Now, why should I wait for it basically, right? So if you miss that release window again, you have to wait for the next release window again. Let's say that every Saturday, the 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. is my release window. If I miss this Saturday window, and then I have to wait for the next Saturday again. Now, why should I do this basically? Why do I need to wait it? Though my application is ready, why am I not able to deliver it to the end user? Why I have to wait for only the release window here? Why can't I deliver it immediately to the production? Now that is another challenge that you need to have it, or that you need to be addressed. Basically, these are all the challenges, team. Now let's talk one another big problem, which everybody see it, I believe. This is what is a problem that everybody do see it, which is called as works fine in development, and then it is not, it is the ops problem now. I hope you guys might see this, team. Let me explain it what exactly this means for us. Let's say that we are delivering, let's say that we are releasing a new version of the application. Let's say that, we are releasing version 2 now to the production. We start the operation folks or ops problem, or whatever the operation team who are responsible for deploying the application into the production. They start deploying the application. Once they deploy the application, they start testing the application. Now, while they're testing the application, they found some problems, right? Now they simply open a bridge call or something like that, and then they call everybody, those who can look into the issues. Let's say that the development team, not the development team, the middleware team, or the database team, or a networking team, everybody comes to this. Operation teams, all the operation team comes to the call. Everybody checks it properly, and then everybody says everything is working fine. Then finally we go and call the developer. Now the developer comes and says a beautiful word saying that, okay, I tested the application in my environment, it is working perfectly fine. Now that's your problem only, you resolve it. Now that is what you hear, team, every day to day. This is what happens basically. This is a regular problem like everybody is facing now. Now how to avoid this problem is also one of the challenge, we call it. So these challenges need to be resolved, team. That is the reason now we are moving into the next evolution, next thing, which is called as DevOps. Okay, so think about those challenges, team. Now you will get the answers why I need the DevOps here. Now with DevOps, basically we are targeting the speed of the development is done already. Now we are trying to achieve the speed in delivery also, right? So at the same time, we want to look at the stability also. What do you mean by stability here? Also, I ask you to deliver the application fast. That doesn't mean that application should fail in the production, right? When I deliver it, it must be perfect. That is why it is called as speed with delivery. Speed with stability, the stability basically. That is what, team. So we'll talk about DevOps first of all. We will talk more about the DevOps. Let's try to understand the other words here, which is called as your application architecture, something like monolithic architecture to n-tier. Now we are talking of further called as microservices architecture. What exactly is this? Now what exactly is a cloud on the other end? We'll talk about containers also, team. So what exactly is the cloud? Let me start with the cloud here in simple words. Now you understood the data center is like your kitchen, right? Where you cook and you eat yourself. Now when you get bored at your home, you go to the hotel. That is the second level, which is called as hosted data center. Now you might got something called as cloud here. The cloud is something like your online food delivery systems, like, I mean, you can sit at your home and you can order whatever you wanted. They will prepare everything and they'll deliver it to you. Means that you sitting at home and you can achieve everything, or you can do yourself everything without doing anything, right? So that's what is called as this one. Now the cloud is also similar model, team. Sitting at your home, you can procure some infrastructure based on your requirement, everything on demand. Whenever you want it, you can go ahead and do it. at your fingertips. You can do everything. Now the second thing is about here, right? Something called as, it's a pay as you go model, which means that whenever you go for the cloud, if you use a server for 10 hours, you can pay for 10 hours only. Simply completely pay as you go model. Whatever you used it, you pay for that only, right? That is something we call it as cloud nowadays, in simple words. Now let's think about another thing, word called as here microservices, right? What exactly is microservices here? Why do we need a microservice architecture? So team, here we thought about NTR architecture. We further, or from monolithic, we said that we decoupled architecture. We loosely coupled the architecture a little bit so that we got some much benefits. So that one component is not affecting the other component, like database is not affecting the application, either application is not affecting the database component. Now, what is the need of microservices here? What exactly or why we are thinking about microservice architecture, right? Now let's think about this scenario team here. Let me do this again. Let me get back to this. Let's say that I hosted my SBI application here, right? This is what is my, I said like SBI internet application, internet banking application. This is what it is. Now the entire application is on a single server team here. Think about that scenario. This is what is something we have it. Now, when I launch this application, let's say that from the browser, I'm hitting this SBI application. Let's say this is my SBI application launched in the browser, which has a set of features. Let's say that the first thing is what is called as login page for me, right? Now, the second thing, once after I put my credentials, I go inside the application. I see something called as debit card section, credit card section, right? Now, also you have something called as your loan modules, right? Loan module. And apart from that, you do have your mutual funds. You have your mutual funds and everything finally. So you have various sections of your applications like this. Let's say that now, why I'm telling this team, this is a whole single application which is launched by you, right? You deployed as a single server. In that server only you're getting this application, everything. Now let's think about a scenario here team, because all the different modules of your applications are tightly coupled here. Earlier different components are tightly coupled. Now here various modules of your applications are still tightly coupled, we call it. Now what is the disadvantage with this kind of architecture, right? So if you think about team, let's say that I have 100 users who are accessing my application right now, out of which 90 users are using debit card and 10 users are using the credit card, right? Now all of a sudden the credit card section stopped working. Now all of a sudden the credit card section stopped working. Now let's say that in order to fix this credit card section, what exactly I have to do it? I need to go to the development. I need to fix the issue of the credit card, whatever it is. Now, when I start deploying the application into the environment again, I need to bring down everything here. I need to redeploy the whole application, which includes all the functionalities of your application, like login, debit, loan, everything. Which means that in other words, the other 90 users who are not using credit card are also facing the downtime here. Now, if you think about it, why should I give the downtime for 90 users who are not at all worried about credit card, right? This is the scenario. If you think about it, why should I give them? Why should those users should get a downtime there, right? Now, this is kind of a, customer satisfaction leading to unsatisfied state. Though I'm not having any problem with my section, why should I get the downtime? Now, this is the scenario team where people started thinking about further decoupling your application modules into a smaller pieces. Let's say that now I have to build an application like this, right? Login as a separate application. Like earlier I said SBI.var, which includes various functionalities. Now let's say that I'll build a separate application for each module, right? Debit.var file, right? Credit.var file. So this is how we start working on it. Let's say that loan.var file. So this is how team we actually started building the application. Now, when I build this application in this way, what happens is that if I have a credit card section problem, I can simply bring down only the credit card section. I can still make the other users available, the rest of the applications. People start using other applications. The other users who are not worried about the credit card, they can still access the application and can start, using this one, right? They can start enjoying the features of the application. Now, this is called as a microservice team. Every functionality of your application is decoupled and deployed as a separate service in the backend. Now team, here try to understand here there are various things, basically advantages that comes into the picture. Login.var file, basically you can host it on a Tomcat server, right? Now, whereas your debit card section can be hosted on WebSphere. Now, let's say that credit card section can be hosted on a different process like Node.js, something, right? Using a Node.js, you can host the application. Similarly, you can use JBoss here. So you can use the various technologies like this, right? Now, this is way team, and you can start using a different technology also. To develop my application here, I use a Java code or Java language. I can use a Python application or Python coding here. Now here I can use something called as .NET. So decoupling your application modules into further smaller services. Now each and every individual service here is called as a microservice. You host them as a separate service in the background. In the front end, you see the same application, but you would see only the background differences here, the way you host the application in a different format. Now this is called as, the microservices architecture team in simple words, right? Simply, this is how the microservices converts your application modules into a smaller pieces where you can maintain the no downtime applications completely. Means that all the users may not use all the functionality of the application at the same time. So keeping the application available and then making only the services which are not working down and then fixing them accordingly. So it is further decoupling the application, we call it. This is why it is called as microservices architecture. Okay. So this is what is called in. I hope you understand what is a microservice architecture now. This is in simple words which we can say it. Now, finally, we can talk about something called as DevOps. We'll talk about the containers team at the last. That is another topic which we need to cover. So this is what is called as DevOps. Now, this is different sections basically. Now let's talk about the DevOps in simple words, and then we'll try to understand more about it. So in simple words, team, I know that people might have a lot of questions when you talk about the DevOps. So DevOps is a culture, or DevOps is a job title, or it's kind of a team, or it is a way of organizing the things, or it's kind of tool stack that you think about it, or it's just a way of thinking, right? This is what all about we call it. Now, for me, team, this is the definition which I like it always. So DevOps is a reorg, not a new team to hire. What I mean to say here, team, is that the main challenge with Agile was the Agile was implemented completely on the development side, where the developers, QA teams are part of this Agile team. They are the one who are continuously interacting with the client, and they are missing the operation folks here, so that the challenges have started. So what exactly we are trying to tell is that let's bring everybody into the same page. Let's put everybody like operation teams and development team into the same place, reorg them into the same team, and then they work as a single unit. That is why it is called as DevOps team. Dev stands for development teams, ops for operation teams. They should be working as a single team rather than working in the silos. They should be working as a single team and ensure that they are all delivering the product much faster. That is what we're expecting. Now, in other words, team, technically, if you talk about the definitions of DevOps is agile IT operations delivery required to match the cadence of agile IT development. This is what we call it, right? It means that with DevOps, with agile, we said that the development has speeded up a lot, but whereas the operations is delayed still. So we want to bring the agile into the operations also, so that operations also gets the same speed of your agile development team, so that we work in parallel and we deliver the application to the end user faster. That is what is expectation, team. That is what the DevOps says to you. Now, DevOps is the philosophy of unifying development and operations at the culture, practice, and tool levels to achieve accelerated and more frequent deployment of changes to the production. Now, at the end of the day, as I said again, we are trying to deliver everything into the production much faster. So by collaborating well, we can deliver the application faster and ensure that our end user is happy always. So this is what is called as your DevOps team in technically. This is what we call it. So we are trying to achieve something which is really want to speed up the delivery of the application delivery. That's all we call it. Now, DevOps is first a culture of collaboration between developers and operations. That's what we call it. First thing is that we need to bring everybody on the same page. Now that sets up a mindset for everybody that we are all working towards the thing. Now there you can start implementing the rest of the things to how to achieve the speed of the delivery. So the culture has given a scope of set of practices, because when you group a multiple talents together, you get a better practices and better development process and everything. That is what we call it as set of practices will be implemented. Finally, DevOps is a revolutionary movement by practitioners for practitioners only. So the existing teams only implemented this, and then only the existing field can be used this effectively. That is why we call it as revolutionary movement by practitioners for practitioners. Right now, simply if you talk about the goals of the DevOps team in simple words, the goal of the development team is to deliver the features into the hands of the customer with speed. That is what it is called, as quickly as possible. So the goal of the development team is always speed, but the goal of the operation team is to maintain the stability of the system to minimize the downtime, right? The operation teams looks for the stability, development team looks for the speed. So we need to match each of these guys now. Let's say that stability and speed of delivery, we need to achieve it. Now this can be achieved with your CI/CD process also, which we call it continuous integration and continuous delivery model, which we are trying to achieve with the DevOps model. That is what we call it. Time to market need to be reduced a lot. Now, along with that, no production failures. We should not do the failure production deployments. That is what it means to say. Immediate recovery from failures. As we are human beings, we are tend to make mistakes sometimes. So we might fail sometimes for sure. But how quickly we can roll back the changes also matters here. So we ensure that how quickly we can roll back. And finally, there is no wall in the DevOps culture. Like I said, like in earlier days, now operation teams and development teams are works in silos. Now you need to remove the wall between this and then ensure that you're all working as a single team to achieve the goal. That is what we call it, or that is what the DevOps tells to you basically. So this is what it is, team. Simply about the DevOps, what DevOps is expecting. Now, in other words, you can see this with waterfall, we are doing the coding, testing, and deploying once. With agile, we code, test, design, and we code, test, design again. Finally, we are delivering it once in a release window or maintenance window. But what DevOps tells you is that as soon as a feature is ready, deliver that into the production immediately. Means that you design, test, code, test, deploy, design, code, test, deploy, design, code, test, deploy. Do not wait for all the features to be deployed at once. Deploy them as soon as they are ready into the production. That is what we are asking about, right? So this is about the DevOps team in shorter words. In other words, team, we call it as DevOps is aimed at implementing the CI/CD process. Now, in order to achieve the DevOps process team, we use a different set of tools, because you know that using the older technology always gives you some trouble, or they are called as heavyweight. Let me take an example. We had a Nokia phones, which we used to use it very well, but nowadays we started using the soft phones, right? This phones, whatever the phones you are using right now, they are all there. Why exactly we changed it basically? So they offer some speed, right? You have a good amount of RAM and everything is there with your phones, right? Now this is why we started shifting the technologies also. The older technologies are they team, they work well, very well. They are stable products, everything is working fine. But moving a heavyweight components with speed is problem. So we are moving towards a lighter weight technologies basically, which helps us move faster, right? Which helps us more faster. Means again, if you know the contents, whenever there is something heavy, it is hard to first move it. Whenever there is something lightweight, we easily move it forward. So that is the same concept applies with the technologies also that we are using it. The older technologies are, we call it as heavyweight technologies, which are good, which are very good at serving the things which we are designed to, but they are heavy to move again forward, speed. So that is why team we started using it. Now, if you start thinking about the technology team as part of the DevOps, we discuss always about, since there is no wall now, we need to know everything in and out of your application. So we start with source code management, where we always discuss about kind of version control system like Git. Now, after this one, we need to build the application. So we talk about a build tools, right? Where we talk about Maven. That is what we talk about. Now we need to look some kind of automation to build our the process basically. We call it as build automation server, where we start using Jenkins, right? Jenkins as a tool which we can help to do this. Now along with that team, we need to prepare the infrastructure with an automation. So preparing the infrastructure is nothing but getting the server ready, installing the Java, Tomcat, whatever you're looking for. Every infrastructure is ready to deploy your applications. That is called as infrastructure ready. So we use something called as configuration management tools, right? Such as your Ansible, right, or Puppet, These are the tools that will help you prepare your infrastructure ready to deploy the application into the infrastructure. Now, finally, team, the way we used to host applications on virtual machines earlier, now we are shifting towards a lighter weight technology, such as, we go for the containers. Containers are the way to host the applications now. So this is where we started using the containers. So Docker is the container platform, basically, which we always introduce with the DevOps, which is a mandatory tool again in the DevOps to make sure you deliver your application faster, right? So after this, we always talk about container orchestration also. When we containerize our application, it is little bit harder to manage the container. So we need a container orchestration such as Docker, Swarm, or Kubernetes. Kubernetes are the container orchestration technologies we normally involve in it. Now, finally, this is about delivering is completed. So we finally maintain it. So we can talk about something called as monitoring, right? Where we discuss about something called as Nagios mostly, or Prometheus. We can discuss a few tools like this. So these are the tools, team, which we actually use it as part of your DevOps, basically, to ensure that you implement the complete process along with. So this is called as your the tools and technologies that we actually use it, or we normally give it to everybody as part of the DevOps course that people seek to learn the DevOps courses. This is what we actually do it. So this is about tools and technologies, team. Now the end goal is that we need to build a CI/CD pipeline, continuous integration and continuous delivery pipeline, or a deployment pipeline we call it. So this will help us, our application features are delivered as soon as they're ready, they're delivered into the production. The pipeline is something which will help us automate everything so that we can deliver the applications into the market much faster. So with DevOps, we aimed to create a CI/CD pipeline which help us again to deliver the application into the market much faster way. So this is called as the aims, which you can talk about the target of your DevOps model. So how do we achieve this? We're going to do a quick demo at the end, team, but before that, I would like to discuss about a few more things on the containers, and then finally we'll do a quick demo to show you that how the CI/CD works, and then after that we'll wind up, we'll go to the question and answers accordingly. Okay, so this is something we do it now, team. If you talk about the containers, like as part of this, we still left over the containers. Now let's talk about containers in short words, why the containerization is required, right? So in short words, team, if you think about this, right? So here it is, right? So the need of containers, why the need of containers has arrived in the market right now. The Docker being one of the bigger technology now in the market, everybody is looking to containerize their applications. So let's start looking at why containerize, basically. If you look at this, team, these are the general shipping containers, we call it. What is the purpose of these shipping containers? How we used to ship the things before these containers in the market, right? Now this, team, if you think about it, you have, let's say that you take an example of you shifting your home from one location to other location, right? One geographic location, other location maybe. Now it is like you have various type of goods in your home, and then you need to opt for various type of the transportation. Then it is a very difficult task for you to track them accordingly, and then there is no guarantee that they deliver it good. So these are all the challenges that you normally face it. Now how exactly I solve the problem of this one? By putting them everything into a simple container, right? Like we take a bigger container, I'll put all my belongings into that particular container. Now I can simply worry about this container delivery, not about rest of the things, right? I'll tightly put it everything into this, I'll lock it out so that the transport guy, now I can choose any one transport here in simple words. Now the transport guy, we just tell them, okay, you need to deliver this container, that's it. He will take care of it. Now you will get all the benefits out of it. The transportation charges are gone minimal, right? Along with that, the security has come to all of your products that you're delivering it. There are many things comes into the picture. So this is what we call it as containerizing in general words. But how does it apply to the software industry? How does it apply to the software industry? If you think about it, here, team, we are also trying to do the same thing. Basically, we are trying to develop the applications or softwares in a simple software, and we are hosting that into different environments using different technologies again, right? So when you're thinking about this, when I deploy my website, which server should I deploy it? Which Tomcat should I use it? Should I deploy in the cloud or should I deploy in the VM? So where should I deploy it? There is a lot of confusion here. We still do this one, but this is what is the problem that we are getting it. That is where when you ship your application from one environment to other environment, you are facing the issues like it is working fine in development, it is not working in the production. That is the biggest problem, right? This is why it is. Now, if you can think about putting everything which is required to run your application into a container, right? So let's say that in order to run my application, I want to, I want to have all the dependencies deployed into a single container and deliver the container which has all the dependencies to run your application. Now, what exactly this means is that, right? Let me explain this way so you could understand much better. So let's go with this, right? Let's say that in every organization, we have various environments, right? Let's say that you have development, QA, production, or pre-production and production. This is what you have it. Now team, here, in order to, let's say that this is my application, I built an application basically, app.var or whatever it is. Now, if I want to deliver this team into the different environments, like this is dev, this is QA, and this is pre-prod, you have finally the production. This is the various environments that you have it. Now team, in order to deploy this application into these environments, we need a dependencies basically, like every machine should have an OS, right? And finally, in order to host this, you might have a Tomcat and then let's say kind of Java. So you need Java. So the same thing need to be preset team, means that every server has to be pre-deployed or pre-installed all these configurations, right? So this is what it is. Now this is how you can preset the environment. Now this is what we are actually doing so far. Now finally what you're doing is you're simply taking this application, right? Simply taking this application and deploying it here. So if it is working fine here, let's it work good. Now we are shipping only the application code but not the dependencies again. Deployed here, it's working fine. Finally you take to the production, you might miss some configurations to copy maybe, then finally it stops working in the production. Now this is the problem team which we are facing actually, to deliver the application into different environments, right? This is what is actually the realistic problem that you have it when you're delivering the application into different environments. It always, right, like it is working fine in development environment, it's not working in the production environment. Now, why should I do this way basically? Why can't I do this model, right? Let's say that instead of delivering only the application, let's build an application with all its dependents. Let's say that I want to prepare a package here, prepare a small package. Let's say that you have your var file. This is the application basically. To run this var file, I need Tomcat obviously, and the Java is required to run it. Now the OS, right? Now this is the package which I'm building it, right? So finally, instead of delivering this, let me remove this. So instead of delivering this or installing these software separately on each and every machine across different environments, let's say that we deliver this package. This package is simply having everything that is needed to run your application basically. Now, if I prepare this package in the development environment, let's say that in the development environment, I'm preparing this package like this. Now, after this one, I go and deliver it to QA. If it is working in the development environment, it should work in the QA also, because I'm shipping everything, whatever is needed to run my application. Similarly, I can deliver it to pre-prod and I can deliver it to the production. Now, this way, team, we can achieve that, okay, if the application works in fine development environment, this should work fine in the production also. Now, simply, team, this is called as an image or a container. You can think about it. Now, this is called as a container, which we are trying to get it run. And then we are delivering this one actually into the various environments, right? This is simply what we call it as a container. Now, container is something, team. A container is basically an application plus all of its dependencies together packaged as a deployable unit. That thing is called as simply the container. So the container definition goes like this, team. Again, I'm telling it. Application, which is nothing but your var file, plus all of its dependencies packaged together so that it can be deployed into the different environments. Now, this is simply called as a container. So this is what we are trying to prepare now, and then deliver this container instead of delivering only the application code across the different environments. And the purpose is very simple, team. It solves the purpose, like if it is working in development, it works in the production also, exactly the same thing. If it is not working in production, that should have the problem in the development also. Now, this is what is called as container in simple words. Now, in order to deploy this container, team, we need a special software. We cannot cannot directly deploy on a machine basically. So in order to deploy this container, basically, we need a machine with an operating system. And on top of it, we need a special software, which is called as Docker. So Docker is a special software here, or Docker is called as a containerization platform, which allows us to deploy the containers or prepare the container and deploy the containers into different environments. This is why we use Docker team. I hope you guys might have got some idea now what is Docker and what is container here. So the container holds the application plus all of its dependencies. Now, in order to prepare this package and in order to deploy this package into various environment, we use a special software which is called as Docker. So Docker is the containerization platform that allows us to deliver the application to various environments, or that allows us to create the package called as container and deploy the container into various environments. Now, this is where we started learning about the container team. We started about containerizing the applications and all. Now, if you think about this, this is what we thought. Everything put into a container and you can deliver it wherever you want it, irrespective of the platform. Now you can run it in your virtual box or you can run it in the cloud. It will run same as it is. So that is why the containers have become more popular in the market. And then everybody started containerizing your application so that it will be easy for us or easy to deliver the application with faster, because containers are lightweight, we call it. We'll talk about in a minute why they are lightweight basically, right? Now, if you think about, Docker is one of the technology which allows us to prepare the containers and deploy the containers. Likewise, team, we have many other technologies also, such as LXC, Rocket, CRIO, Containerd. All these are also containerization technologies, but people doesn't know about this much. Docker is the one which is very popular in the market right now. 99.99% of the organizations using Docker for containerizations, right? So this is how we started evolution towards the containers. That is why we call it. Now Docker as a thing team here, if you look at it, so Docker provides a way to run applications securely isolated in a container. That is what we call it, packaged with all its dependencies and libraries. That is what we use a containers. And Docker is a software, runs on Linux and Windows as well. It helps to create, manage, right? Create, manage, and orchestrate the containers. The software is developed as part of the Moby. That's okay. That's, you don't need to worry about the thing. Now, Docker Inc. is a company. Now, this has been acquired by some other company called as Mirantis. So Docker is now more Inc. Docker is acquired by something called as Mirantis. So Mirantis is holding the Docker product now. And then this is called as this one. I need to change that. It's okay. Then Docker is also called as OS level virtualization. Let's talk about this team. There are a few other advantages that you gain with your containers. Let's talk about of them. So let's get back to this. Now we thought that we hosted this one. We convert to virtual machines here, right? Now nowadays we are using the containers to host this, right? So let's talk about the containers here, what advantages they bring in, right? We converted from physical, we hosted application at first in physical, then we hosted in the virtual machines. Now we are hosting them as containers. Now what exactly is the difference between this one? Now, as I spoke team here, like hypervisor allowed us to create the virtualization here, a virtual machine. Now, in order to run the containers, we always need an operating system where a Docker software installed, then only we can run the containers. Docker is the one which we call it as a platform here to run your containers. Now let's talk about the container here. A container which looks like the same as your virtual machine, but so container has the same thing like a WAR file, which requires a Tomcat, right, and Java, and then finally OS. Now this is the same stack team here. Also, you would use it actually in the virtual machine side. This is what we had it, right? So here also you have WAR file, Tomcat, and then finally Java and OS, right? So this is how team. Now, if you really look at the differences here, there is not much differences that you would find with the container as well as the virtual machine. Now, this is what I'm calling it as container, right? Why this is called as container, why this is called as virtual machine? What exactly is the difference between the container and the virtual machine here? If you think about that team, let's try to understand this way, right? Let's say that this is the same using the physical capacity again. So this is what it is. Sorry team, just give me a second. So this is the same physical server that we take it and we started deploying them containers here. That is what we are talking about. So this is what we are actually using it. Now, how exactly we are differentiating the container from the virtual machine? Think about team, the virtual machine has an operating system, which is a fully blown operating system. So if you think about this operating system team, it has a kernel in it. It has to initialize the various operating system services. And then finally you install or initialize the Tomcat, then your application will initialize it. This is the reason team, we say that virtual machine takes the boot time. If you reboot a virtual machine, it takes at least 5 minutes to access your application after you reboot your machine. Means the machine goes down, machine comes up. Finally, if I want to access my application, it takes 5 minutes because it is a fully blown operating system here where it has a kernel in it and it has all the operating system services need to be initialized. Then finally, after the operating system initializes successfully, then your Tomcat initializes, then your application loads into the Tomcat, then you finally access your application on the top. Now, whereas in the container side team, the container has an operating system, but this is called as a minimal operating system. When I say minimal operating system here, think about it, this is simply called as operating system library, not an operating system, not a full operating system. This is called as OS library only. When I say library team, this is just like your Java, right? The Java is a library that you just install it. You never start the process for it, right? So just like sitting on the machine, it will help you whatever you want to achieve it. Similarly, we converted the OS into a library. How did it happen? How exactly this happened basically? If you think about it, team. Now let's think about the application that you're running on a virtual machine. Let's take an example here. This is my Java application, right? Now, in order to run this Java application team, try to understand, in order to run this Java application, let's think about what are all the features that your operating system has it. Let's say that your operating system has a feature called as editor, VI editor, or a PS command, or a top command, or a cat command. These are all the default features that comes with your operating system. But if you really think, does your application uses any of these features? No, right? Definitely not. Your application doesn't need a VI editor on the operating system. It simply uses some of the features from the operating system, which allocates some resources to this particular application. That's all. Only the basic features used from the operating system. Whatever is the rest is unnecessary for your application, which is on the operating system. Now that is where team, we started taking out all those unnecessary features which are not required by your application. Now you left over with a minimal operating system, simply a library, no kernel in it, nothing, no operating system initializing services, nothing is there, just the minimal operating system library left over. Since it is just the library, there is nothing to initialize at the library, right? And the Java, there is nothing to initialize. The only thing that gets initialized here is Tomcat immediately. As soon as you start your container, Tomcat initializes immediately, and then your application loads into it. Now you will be able to access the application within 2 seconds, right? As a good, the perfectly designed container can come up in 2 seconds, and then it can start serving your application. This is how team we reduced, or the boot time has drastically changed here. That is the reason we say that the containers are lightweight. Containers are very lightweight here. They start, containers are very lightweight. They start up very quicker and then start serving your application. It's simple, faster, right? Now, so this is what all we talk about it, team. This is why containers are lightweight, we call it. Now there are some other features that your dynamic, the contain virtual machine doesn't have, such as dynamic resources. We call it as dynamic resources. What do you mean by dynamic resources is team here? Is not possible. I'll say this. Why this is because let's say that team, when I created the virtualization here, I used hardware as a reference point so that I could allocate resources to my virtual machine. Simply when I create a simple virtual machine, I allocated 4 CPU, 10 GB RAM, 100 GB disk. Now all of a sudden my application required extra RAM capacity to process more requests. Let's say that I allocated 10 GB only, but my application required 12 GB, and 2 more GB extra. Can it take it from the underlying hardware directly? Now the answer is no, because the virtual machine has limited to 10 GB. After the 10 GB, it starts hanging it. If you want to manually extend the capacity of the virtual machine, yes, you can do that. but dynamically the virtual machine cannot extend the resources on it, so that application starts hanging. Now your virtual machine may go down also. So dynamic resources are not possible here. Now, when it comes to the container team, container is simply called as a process on your system. Now, this is directly consuming the resources from the underlying hardware. We never limit, right? We never limit the resources for your container so that it can directly take it from the underlying hardware. Yes, containers are dynamically taking the resources from the underlying hardware directly. So right, so they are all dynamic, means that if it requires, my container requires 2 GB RAM, it can take 2 GB. If it requires 10 GB RAM, it can extend up to 10 GB also. That is possible with the containers. Similar to that, you can run multiple containers also on the same machine with a different operating system in it, and all those things are possible. Now this is how team you get more features along with that. Now it is the same thing team. Now we talked about one another challenge with the virtual machines, which is called as scalability, right? Scalability is possible, but if I want to create 10 new virtual machines, it will take some time for me. But whereas if I want to create another 10 containers team, it takes only another 2 seconds for me, because it's 2 seconds to start up a container. Basically, it's because I have the image ready. From the image I'm running the container. Now it is easy for me to start 2 containers or 10 containers from a single thing, always easy, right? Though scalability is very easy here, right? Very easy with the scalability. Now this is what we call a team. The containers have these kind of features that comes into the picture, which will help us improve the speed of the delivery, because they are lightweight, because they are all easy to move across the different environments. Now we are containerizing our applications to move our code into the production much faster. That is what all we are discussing about here. Okay, so these are the set of features team that you have it with your containers, that you can think about it, so that people are thinking like, okay, let's containerize so that we can move our code also into the production much faster. That is the goal of your DevOps also. The DevOps is always speed delivery, speed of the delivery, but at the same time we want to achieve the stability also. The containers do provide the stability when you ship your code across multiple environments. With the containerization, yes, this is possible. That is the reason people are started looking for the containers, right? So this is what we call it. This is what is containerization, we call it. Okay, now you can think about the use cases of the Docker and everything. They have much thing. Now one final thing team, which we can talk about for 5 minutes, right, which is called as your container orchestration. Now you understood that we can deliver the containers faster way, but how to manage them in the production environment? Because containers are dynamic in nature. Containers can go up, can go down and come up easily, can start a new container easily. Now, how do I control this nature? How do I control this dynamic nature of the containers? Now, this is where team, we need a sophisticated tool again, which helps us manage the containers. Or when we think about the orchestration here, how do I deploy them into n number of servers? How do I scale them across n number of servers? All these questions comes into the picture. Let's say that again, why container orchestration? If you look at it, hosting container based applications in different environments brings many challenges to the hosting team or operations team or a DevOps teams, we call it, such as how can we group servers across different clouds or different data centers or in your data center, so that we can maintain a cluster and then to deploy the containers across the cluster. That is the first challenge. Now, how do I set up the networking across the servers? Because we converting the microservices team, the microservices need to communicate with each other to maintain the application functionalities. So how do I maintain the networking across the multiple features here or multiple microservices? When you containerize your microservice and deploy it as a microservice, how do I ensure the networking is happening properly? Now for this also the answer is orchestration. How do I define my own capacity based placement? So how can I automatically scale out the cluster? So these kind of challenges, how do I monitor? All these things comes into the picture basically with the, when you think about the container based application, for all these container orchestration is the solution basically. Now that is where we talk about something called as such as various container orchestration tools in the market. Now Docker has its own container orchestration, which is called as Docker Swarm. or whereas we have another container orchestration platform which is called as Kubernetes, which is from the Google and which is very popular now in the market. Everybody is trying to adopt the Kubernetes, right, as a container orchestration. Now every cloud provider has its own, container orchestration as well. A service, basically the service, the platform as a service we call it. They host at a platform as a service like AKS for Azure Kubernetes Service, EKS for Elastic Kubernetes Service on AWS Cloud. If you go to Google Cloud, there is something called as GKE. So everybody is providing the Kubernetes platform as a service from the cloud services. Along with that, you can deploy the Kubernetes cluster on your own also. But mostly Kubernetes is the one which is used widely for the container orchestration completely, right? So we have from every cloud provider, there is something different, but that's okay. The Kubernetes is the one which is purely or 100% as used as a container orchestration, that you need to have it in the mind when you think about the containers again. So this is about the container orchestration team. This is why we need the container orchestration in simple words. Now, if you want a quick comparison between the two container orchestration which are popular in the market right now, which is Docker Swarm versus Kubernetes. So Docker Swarm provides no auto scaling, whereas Kubernetes is providing auto scaling for you guys. So auto scaling is possible with Kubernetes. Docker Swarm implements something called as its own networking model. So you have to stick to one solution there, where it may not be extendable, so that you have to work with that only. But whereas Kubernetes is something called as pluggable, which provides something called as CNI, container networking interface, where you can plug in multiple networking features as per your requirement. Both are open source, first of all. So the Docker Swarm has a good community support, whereas Kubernetes has a great community support for you guys, which is from the Google again. So you have a great community support. And along with that, the Docker Swarm has a limited API capabilities, whereas Kubernetes has a very rich APIs, which you can extend it with the Kubernetes operators and everything, which you can plug in your own APIs to Kubernetes. Also, if you design a Kubernetes API and you want to plug it with API Kubernetes server and you want to work on your own things, yes, Kubernetes supports that, whereas Docker Swarm does not allow that one. So this is about a team. This is what we call it. So this is a quick demo on this one team, but let's look at a quick CI/CD demo, which I would like to show you in a matter of minutes now. So let's walk through a CI/CD demo team, which I'll be walking you through in simple words. Let me show this. This is the CI/CD. When we talk about CI/CD team, which is called as continuous integration and continuous delivery or deployment, so which involves in various phases. Let's say that whenever the developer commits a source code on the source code management tool, such as GitHub, if you take it, you take the code from the GitHub, you start compiling the code, then review the code completely, and then perform the unit testing, and then finally do the packaging of the source code. Now after packaging, you build a Docker container, right? We want to containerize. Packaging is nothing but generating the var file, but after that one, we talk about containerization. Now we want to prepare a container with application plus all of its dependencies. Now prepare the container and deploy the containers into the environment like QA environment. Once you're done deploying into QA environment, you can use the automation test cases such as Selenium test cases to run the automation test. Once that is done, you can even deliver your application into the production environment. So this is a complete pipeline flow team. You can think about it step-by-step process. Now, just to show you here, I have a server, which is a Jenkins server, right? So this is my Jenkins server where I'm running my Jenkins process, right? Now I have two different servers, which is called as a QA server here, where I'm running the Docker basically, where I can deploy my Docker containers. Right now, there is no containers running. And this is called as a production server, right? So you can see that there are no containers running also. So my challenge is that now team, I need to run this pipeline, or let's say that we will make it source code change, or let's say that I have a source code here, which is under GitHub, right? So this is my source code basically. If I make a change here, this should trigger the build automatically. I should not be triggering this. I'll show you that clearly. So let me take this. Sorry team. This is my source code. This is my pipeline, right? So if I make a change here completely, right, whatever the source code, let's say that the developer is making some change and he's pushing the code into the the GitHub project or source code management tool. As soon as he triggers or as soon as pushes the code, the pipeline should trigger and then it should deploy or deliver the application into the production environment. That is what the flow that we're going to see it quickly. Here, let me say that here the source code is available, team. The pipeline is ready. I'm not going into the configuration, how we configured and everything. Just showing you that if I make a change on my source code, it will trigger the pipeline. It will deliver the containers into the production environment. That is what I'm going to show you. So let me make a small change here. So I'll go to the source code here completely, and then so I'm just going to modify a simple file, team. That's all I'm going to do it. So let's say that I want to modify this Java file, whatever it is. Let me open this and I edit this file, right? So I'm just going to put some comment, team, nothing else. I'm going to do it. Not a big change, I'm doing it. Let's say that I modified some code and I would like to commit the change. So as soon as I commit the change, this should trigger the process here. Let's see that if it is going to trigger it or not. Let me see here. Refresh the page. Let me log in, sorry. See here now, I think it started the process already. The job 1 is triggered successfully now. Let's look at this. It will start the job 2 now or not. See here now the job 2 is also running, team. I did not trigger anything. When I made a change in my source code, the pipeline started triggering, right? Now the compilation is completed. The code review is also completed. The results will be sent over to the developers, the review results or whatever it may be. Now it is performing the unit test here. Simply we can look at that. Unit test is completed. The results will be sent over again to the developers through the email that will be there. We can configure the emails and everything can be possible. Now finally, team, we are packaging the code here. Packaging in the sense we are generating a var file. Along with that, we are also going to create a container. Means that we are going to bundle the application plus all of its dependencies together, and the image or a container will be pushed into a Docker Hub basically. Now the package is also completed. Let me show you in the Docker Hub. See that this is where I'm pushing it basically. It is a quick demo, team. Try to understand. Here it is. Now you can see that we have uploaded the new container here, which is a few seconds ago by default, just now when I ran it, right? Now this is the one which we are deploying it, the 6th version of my application. Think that this 6 number is nothing but the version of the application. This is the 6th version we are trying to deploy into the QA and production. So let me show this CD. Okay, so here you can see this, team. It is deployed successfully into the QA also, QA environment. Now it is also converting, or it is also deploying in the production, right? So this is how you can simply achieve a CI/CD pipeline by making use of the tools that we discussed. Here the tools involve, team, Jenkins, Git, Docker, right? And then Docker Swarm for the container deployments, which you're using it. And finally, we used Ansible also to connect to the things. So let me show you the outcome here on the servers. Now, if I simply say this, the containers are running here. Now in the QA also the containers are running. Okay, this is what you can do it. Docker service ls. You can see that, and you can still access the application using this port number 9080. So let me access the application. Let me take the IP address of this. I'll access the application. I'll show you. So here it is, 3.135.184.251. I'm using the application team, the host name, and the port number, which is 9080, and say that this is called as sample app. Sorry, this syntax is mistake. Okay, here you go. So let's see that the application is launching, team, and then we can see that we can conclude that this one is working fine as expected. So this is how, team, you can understand that the simple the CI/CD flow that we are trying to achieve with the DevOps model, DevOps processes and DevOps tools that are really helping you to achieve this. I think it's 251 where it is missing. Okay, IP address, I kept it wrong, team, sorry. Now you can see that the application is launching, right? See that this is a very simple application basically, where we prepared a container and then we deploy it as a container into different environments. Simply, this is called as CI/CD flow. I mean, this is the quickest demo which I did it ever, but This is what all I'm trying to show you. Hope you understand the things, team. This is all about the demo that we wanted to present you completely. Now here, if you're still thinking about something called as why DevOps, I'll walk you through with the DevOps why it is required, right? So all organizations are today are working hard to respond better around the changing dynamic environments to adopt the DevOps practices and all. So all organizations are now hiring your DevOps engineers team, that is mandatory. And we see a growth of 75%, that is one thing. Why containers here? That is another thing you can think about it. So with the containers are the future in simple words, I call it. We will share this PPT and everything with you guys. Please go through this. One final thing, team, before we go ahead, certifications is done by these guys. Now there is one offer for you guys, everybody here, as a from DevOps University. Please do not leave. So the workshop certificate, certified foundation. This is what we are trying to do it. So where we are conducting a DevOps Foundation course, team, which will be a free of cost for you guys, everybody who would like to register. Please go through this URL and then register for yourself. So this is of actually the charges are $299, but we are offering it free. This is a DevOps Foundation course. We'll try to walk you through, but we're also trying to provide the certification for the same course if you try to attend it. But the certification will cost you $20, but earlier it was used to $50. But we are giving it an offer right now, which is on $20. So if you try to register for this team, please go through this, the link which I gave you. This is where we are going to send you this links and everything. Sorry. So this is all the offer that we are doing it right now. So please make use of this offer and then ensure that you get the concepts of DevOps, get into more on DevOps world, or welcome to the DevOps world actually. So this is what we all try to deliver, team. Thank you so much, and then I hope you are all, you love the demo here. Hope you understood what is DevOps and what is containers now, all these things.